Hi there. Hello. Can you hear me? Good. My name is Bill Murray. I'm not that Bill Murray. So, you can insert your jokes now about Caddyshack and Ghostbusters and all that. I think it would be kind of funny if he actually did show up here. Anyway, my name's Bill, and I run a shop called AWS Security Programs, and we're gonna chat a little bit today about how we look at security in AWS, how you should look at security as you deploy your applications and your environments on AWS. And I think it should be all right. So we're gonna figure out how to move fast and stay safe in the AWS cloud. So just starting off here, we have something at Amazon called a correction of event errors document. So if something goes wrong, something breaks in Amazon, all of Amazon, not just AWS, people are made to fill out this document called a COE, a correction of error. And in one of the sections of the document is called the 5 whys. It's not good enough to say, why did something go wrong, and answer that question one time. Because you really don't get an idea of the root cause of the problem. For example, why were you late? I got a flat tire. Okay, why did you get a flat tire? Well, I was, taking this shortcut. Why did you take the shortcut? Because I was running late and I, didn't get out of the house in time. Why didn't you get out of the house in time? Well, because I had to, feed the dog or something like that. So you ask the question why 5 times recursively. So just as an exercise, we'll do that a little bit with this. Like, why is security such a hot topic? Security is important and it's hard. Why is it important? Because it's everything we do. At AWS, we have really one job in the security shop, and that's protect your data and protect our data. We have no other mission there. So it is very important. Our customer trust is everything. And it's difficult. I mean, security is one of those things where you have to be one step ahead of the bad guy. You have to be one step ahead of your own developers, actually, sometimes. So why is it so hard? Because there's a lot of planning that's needed. Most security shops have 3- and 5-year outlooks on what they should be doing. They try to roll security into the software development lifecycle and the program management lifecycle. So there's a lot of planning that needs to happen. So why does the planning take so long? Because it requires a lot of processes. The processes are there to ensure people don't screw up. Another interesting thing about Amazon, there's a famous talk by Jeff Bezos called Good Intentions. And good intentions is something that's really not good. Good intentions is something that we don't like. Why is a good intention bad, you ask? A good intention is when somebody does something wrong, you pat them on the back and you say, try not to do that again. Well, that's a good intention, trying not to do that again. And people generally don't want to screw up in the first place. So asking somebody to just try harder is a noble thought, but it doesn't really have any real concrete action. So in order to get concrete actions, we institute processes, checks, balances, all the way through things. And there are a lot of them because we don't want to screw up, because we don't want to compromise the data, because we don't want to lose the trust, because security is so important. Again, why are so many processes? Mistakes are easy. It's easy to mess things up, and it's difficult to fix it once the cat is out of the bag. So why are they hard to correct? Well, one of the reasons is lack of visibility. You have to know what you have in order to protect it. And low automation. Machines don't screw up. People screw up. Well, people can program a machine to screw up, but once the programming is correct, once the machine is functioning the way it's supposed to function, it will do that all the time. But the visibility is an interesting thing, and that's one of the things that we're going to talk about today, how we're going to make security more visible to you. So where do we come in? We make security more agile, and we let you move fast while staying safe. Security should never be the roadblock. How many people have gone to their security shop and said, can I do X? And what's the first word out of their mouth? No. No, you can't do that. That's a dumb idea. Why would you want to do that? Well, because we want to make the business go. So security should be an enabler. Security should be agile. Security should, in your shop and in our shop, enable the business to move forward more quickly. We like to say security is job zero. And that's an English, nomenclature. Some people have heard security is job one or quality is job one. Well, when we think about security, we think about it being even before job one. And these are generally the verticals where we look at security: the physical, the network, the platform, and the people. That's our overall arching viewpoint. Physical security is, the data centers, the networking that attaches everything in all of our 11 regions. Network security, obviously, is the connectivity between those particular regions and inside our availability zones and inside our data centers. The platform, obviously, which you use, and then the people. And we'll talk about all of these things individually. But one of the interesting things about this is that center bit up there. We have a lot of very, very large, very, very influential, very, very noisy customers. These customers are very vigilant about their data security, and they are constantly in contact with us on how to improve what they feel is needed, and we contact them on how we feel they should be secured. The beauty of that is everybody benefits. There is not there's not a tiered level of security that if you're a big company and you spend a lot of money, you get a lot of security. No. From the Fortune 100 companies, the big governments, the financials, the pharmaceuticals, the petrochemicals, all the way down to the startups, all the way down to the onesie twosie, a couple of folks in a garage who've got a good idea, who want to deploy a new app, the new killer app, all get the same level of security. We say security is a shared responsibility. We are responsible for the concrete floor of the data center all the way up through the hypervisor or the host operating system. And our customers are responsible for the guest operating system all the way up through the application. Well, that's a symbiotic relationship because you can have the most rock-solid infrastructure and have an application that needs patched, that is vulnerable, and the whole stack is vulnerable. And likewise, you can have a rock-solid application and a very sketchy infrastructure, and again, you're still vulnerable. So we like to say that AWS is responsible for the security of the cloud, and our customers are responsible for the security of their data in the cloud. And how do we validate that? We validate that by all of these accreditations and certifications we have. Everything from ISO 27001 to Motion Picture Association to PCI, Payment Card Industry, DSS, it's Payment Card Industry Data Security Service Level 1. What does that mean? It means that you can run payment card processing on AWS. So maybe you don't run payment card processing. Why is that important to you? Because it's a certification that we can host personally identifiable information on AWS to their standards. I mean, I can stand up here all day long and tell you how secure we are, but these are validated by third-party auditors, and we have letters of attestation that our customers can get. All you have to do is send us an email, and we'll send you a letter of attestation that says, yes, we are compliant with these particular compliance regimes. So again, we've covered this a little bit. Security of the cloud on the bottom, compute, storage, database, networking. Everything above that is security in the cloud. But if something goes bump in the night in your application, we're not going to just leave you out there and say, hey, that's your problem. We have security engineers, and we'll get to this in a little bit, who are on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So security is familiar. Everything that you're doing now in your managed hosting environment or in your basement database or data center or in that little rack that's sitting under your desk in the closet can be done in the cloud. We want to make it as seamless as what's happening right now. So in order to look at security, it needs to be visible, it needs to be audible, it needs to be controllable, and we talked a little bit about it earlier, it needs to be agile. in order to get some of that familiarity, we have the AWS Marketplace. And Jeff mentioned a little bit about this earlier. The marketplace overall has about 2,000 different partners in it, ISVs, SIs, who are building applications and environments that you can use inside the AWS cloud. And that's translated into the security space. We have over 200 partners in security through threat analytics, through Alien Vault, or endpoint encryption with Trend, or network security through Sophos. These folks have architected their solutions to run seamlessly in our cloud in a find, click, and deploy mode. So if you're running Fortinet right now in your environment, you can come into the marketplace, click on Fortinet in the AWS cloud, and not only will you be able to use it, the licensing is taken care of, the payment is pay-as-you-go. So if you like it, use it. If you don't like it, turn it off and you stop paying for it. It's the whole cloud expandability, pay-as-you-go model. Visibility is very important when you talk about security. You can't secure what you don't know you have, right? It's almost impossible to do that. A lot of folks in here, developers, right? How often do you guys map your network? Once a week? No. Once a year, maybe? No. Some of the CIOs and CTOs that we talk to think that they're really good when they do it every 6 months. 6 months plus 1 hour is too long. 6 months plus 1 hour is too long because the procurement process and the difficulty for developers to get resources is a real issue. How many people have seen that? That, by the way, is not an Amazon data center. I just want to say that right now. But we've all seen that in our careers, right? And you go into one of these data centers and you look at something and you say, hey, what's that box right there? And the data center manager says, I don't know. It's like, well, let's turn it off. He's like, whoa, no. I'm not going to turn it off. I don't know what it's running. It might be something important. Well, who put it there? Well, Bob. Bob put it there. Yeah, I remember Bob. He put it there. Let's go find Bob. Ask him what it is. Yeah, well, Bob quit 2 months ago. So now what do you got? You got a mystery box in your data center. Maybe it's patched. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's vulnerable. Maybe it's not. You don't know. So with AWS, everything is API driven. Everything is point and click. So with a click of a mouse, you can pull the console up. You can find out who launched something, when it was launched, how long it's been running, what it's running. So now you have an idea of what's going on. You can find that this instance has been running for too long. Let's kill that instance and restart it. So now it has all fresh and up-to-date settings. So again, visibility is key to the protection of not only your environment, but our environment. Who took what actions? Where? From when? Where? That's important. This IP block is logging into your instances. This IP block is not in a country that you function in. Might want to look into that. So we've instituted some rules. Jeff touched on these things a little bit earlier. We've rolled out these services at reInvent this particular year. And excuse me if I cough. I spent a week in Las Vegas, and there's not enough soap in the world to wash off a week's of Las Vegas, so I've got a little bit of cough for me. Amazon Inspector, the web application firewall and config rules. Jeff touched on these. I'm going to go into them a little bit more in depth. So what is Inspector? It's an assessment tool. It's an application security review tool. It's something that we use internally. We thought it was such a good idea, we were going to vend it out to our customers. So a lot of application security review is mundane. There are certain checks that you need to do that are really easy to do, but time-consuming. So what Inspector does is allows you to install an agent onto your instance, and it will run these checks automatically for you. What does this do? This allows your smart people, this allows the smart folks in your organization to spend their time doing the more difficult stuff. So as Inspector moves on, it gives you these particular checks, and and returns results to you. So, some of the features, activity monitoring, there's a content library in it. It's fully automatable. You can run particular rule sets that we provide you or your own customizable rule sets. Get into that in a second. And it's fully auditable. This goes back to that whole compliance bit. I think 99% of the folks who are in this room have to be subject to some sort of compliance regime, some sort of organization that says you are doing what you're supposed to be doing, and we are doing what we're supposed to be doing. So the rule sets, CVEs, these come right out of the box with Inspector. Network security best practices, authentication best practices, are people authenticating properly? Is it username and password? Is it multi-factor? Whatever you want. OS and AppSec best practices. And right now we're running PCI DSS 3.0 right out of the box. So you can click on a button and say, am I compliant with PCI? The reason why we started with that is because that's what most of our customers have wanted. However, we are continuing to add to this rule set. We're going to add ISO 27001, all of the American FISMA and FedRAMP and HIPAA and all those kinds of fun things. So those are coming as we move forward. Again, it increases your agility. It increases your agility because it's now allowing your staff to get back to the business of why they got into security. Not just checking the box and running through things as they go through application security, looking for the hard things, looking for the problems. It uses our expertise. We have a security shop. It's rather large. That's all we do. We don't develop, applications. We don't develop services or anything like that. Our guys, our application security engineers, are just that, application security engineers. So their expertise is now being leveraged by our customers who are using Inspector. Again, it improves your security posture. That's kind of obvious. And we talked about the compliance already. So it's relatively easy to use. You install the agent, you run the agent, and you get the analysis. This is what the findings page looks like. It's a little bit difficult to read. Actually, it's a lot of bit difficult to read. I can't even read it from here. But you'll see, these are informational findings on the bottom about what's going on. And these are, more, the severity findings. And the severity findings are ranked by high, medium, and low. They're determining about, is there a potential for compromise of the integrity, availability of your particular data. So the beauty of that is once you click on one of these things, it returns a high finding or a medium finding. You click on it, and it provides you this page. This page, again, kind of tough to read, but it gives you what the process is, when the assessment was run, the status of it, what rule package you ran it against. The most important part down here is it's a high severity finding. So what? All right, I got a high severity finding. What am I going to do about it? This is the biggest part of it. It's called the recommendation part. This not only tells you what is wrong, but how to fix it. So if you want to fix it, you can by following these instructions. If you don't want to fix it, or if you want to reconfigure for some other, maybe you figured out what was wrong to cause this finding, then you don't have to. But it gives you actionable intelligence in order to make your environment that much more secure. And it's important to do this in the development stage, because once you roll out a service, once you roll out an application, and look at it right before it rolls out and say, hey, can you do a security review of this? It's too late. You have to have the service being built around security and security embedded into the service from the very get-go. So when you get to the end, when you get to the AppSec review at the very end, it's almost just like a check in the box and say, okay, roll this out. Oops. Next thing is the web application firewall that Jeff mentioned. It's a pretty cool service that we have that's now working on our CloudFront, which is our content distribution network. We have 56 odd CloudFront POPs, we call them POPs, around the world to lessen the latency between your data and your customers. So it provides web filtering, like I said, integrated with CloudFront. Centralized rule management. So you can run a rule set that is utilized by all of your applications worldwide. Again, visibility. It gives you real-time visibility of what kind of traffic is traversing your CloudFront instances. And everything that we do is driven by APIs. It's easy. It's point, click, and deploy. Jeff mentioned the attacks that it could defend against. It's easily deployed. And again, security is embedded in the development process of this thing. That's very important, and we'll talk about that in a little bit when we talk about how AWS does security ourselves. But the point that I can't stress enough is getting security involved early on in the application development process. So this is kind of how WAF works. You have your admins and your developers, right? Your developers are a little bit more savvy, so they can use the API. They can use the command line here. You've got your admins who work through the management console that are running the rule sets that the developers have instituted. There's the CloudFront pops there. You define the rules go into the WAF by either the admins or the developers, and then the protection is deployed across the entire environment. The nice thing about it is you're not out there all alone. Remember I said security is familiar? We have a pretty significant partner network with AlertLogic, Trend Micro, and Imperva, who have already deployed WAF rule sets that you can just click, deploy, and use. So, if you don't know how to really configure an application, a web application firewall, rely on these guys. This is what they do. Config rules is another one. So, AWS config gives you an insight as to what your environment looks like, what it looks like right now, and what it looked like, in days past. And that's interesting because using config, you're able to find out what changed, when it changed, who changed it. So a lot of times, things work, then all of a sudden things don't work. Well, why is it not working today when it was working just fine yesterday? You can go back into config and determine that, oh, somebody made a firewall change. Oh. Well, with config rules, now you can force, using Lambda, changes to those rules. So if somebody made a firewall change it back. Okay? Remember I said that people make mistakes and machines don't? A lot of times folks are trying to do the right thing, good intentions, and end up screwing things up. So config rules gives you that ability to be able to change things once you get them in a nice state, to change things back to that nice state if they change. Now, I keep harping on the developers trying to do the good thing. What about the bad guy out there? The bad guy, once he gets in, he's going to change your firewall settings or your authentication settings in order to create a larger attack surface for them. With config rules and Lambda, that fast, once something changes, it changes back. As a matter of fact, during the reInvent conference, we had one of our security engineers try to demonstrate how this worked. And he was doing a live demonstration, and he couldn't show the change and change back because it happened so fast. He had to build in delays in the presentation to say, okay, I changed this setting, wait, and now it changes back. But it can happen nearly instantaneously. Again, you get dashboard reports for common goals, and again, we have a very broad ecosystem of folks who are going to help you with config rules, to include Telos, Splunk, and Evident.io. These are just some of the three of the others, dozens that are into config rules. Everything that I mentioned earlier is outlined here. You share your compliance across your organization. I keep coming back to compliance because it is really the only proof that we are doing what we're supposed to be doing and you guys are doing what you're supposed to be doing. I guess that's why there's a compliance practice. So here's a demonstration with the config rules interface looks like. It gives you an idea of what changed and what's been changed back. It's kind of tough to see, so I'm just going to skip right back that. So you put it all together. Using these particular applications, using these particular services that we provide. In the old days, you develop, you review, you fix, you deploy, like you deploy your WAF rules. You update, and you review, and then you fix. It's very linear in everything you do. And that takes time. And it leaves you vulnerable, because if there's a problem between review and fix, right here, you're vulnerable. So that shouldn't be the case. What we should be doing now is a more cyclical review process. So you define your standards, you develop, you run the security tests, you're constantly iterating on security, you're constantly remaining safe, you're constantly fixing, developing, and defining things. And it makes for an optimized environment. And again, getting back to the compliance bit, your auditors are very happy because it's very visible. There's no magic that happens behind the scenes. All the magic that happens is tangible and available to your auditing staff. So we try to make life easier at AWS Security. Security by design is one of the ways we do that. This is a bit of a compliance regime thing. Basically what it does is allows you to manage templates. It's an approach to ensure that you formalize your security posture. So instead of managing individual machines, you manage a template. This is what I want all of my machines to look like, and run against those particular templates. It's actually a very cool idea. It provides you control and insight through the entire IT management process. So you have these CloudFormation templates, and the result is reliable technical implementation of your administrative controls. So one of the changes in paradigm that you will see by moving into the cloud or by being in the cloud is that you need to change the mentality of protecting individual boxes. You need to be able to protect fleets and fleets of boxes. So you protect large chunks, but what you're also doing is you're reducing that protection posture down to the smallest available unit. So instead of running a firewall around your infrastructure and thinking that everything inside that firewall is safe, you can use security and the services that we provide to shrink down that protection level down to the data. So you're actually protecting the data. And by using these templates, you can get down to that data level protection, but over a very, very large infrastructure. So that's how we think security should be seen from the customer standpoint. Everybody's asking, well, how do you guys do security? Our team, our security team, is made up of 4 major groups: operations, engineering, AppSec, and compliance. So our operations guys are the guys that are on the end of the pagers. Something goes bump in the night, these are the guys that get called. They help our customers. They work with security researchers. They are very involved in threat intelligence, knowing what exploits are out there and what the bad guys are focusing on. So our operations guys are very, very important. Our engineering guys are guys who build applications and services that we use internally that we are also vending externally. For example, Amazon Inspector. That was something that one of our security engineers said, you know what, I'm tired of doing these checks over and over and over again. I'm going to build a service that does that. And then the boss said, wow, what a great idea. We should make a service for our customers like that. And that's where Inspector came from. That's where Cloud HSM came from. That's where Amazon VPC came from. All of the engineering work internally to vend externally. Application security, every single service that Jeff talked about earlier, all 53 of the major services, all 500 enhancements, go through this year alone, go through an application security review. Our AppSec guys are very busy, they're very tired, and they're working all the time because the pace of innovation at AWS is so incredible. So we have application security. And then we have compliance. Compliance is is important because having your compliance guys inside your organization is paramount to developing things that are already compliant. We have our security engineers embedded in our service teams. So we're not a separate organization. We have in EC2, in S3, in our database, security engineers that are already there. So security is in our DNA. Some of our principles: separation of duties. Because you're an engineer in EC2 doesn't give you access to everything in S3. We have a very fine-grained access system, and we are trying to keep cross-pollination to a minimum. So that's where you get the different personnel between service lines. We have a permissions tool. So if you have permissions in this group and you leave that group and go to another group, your permissions are automatically revoked until your new boss grants you new permissions. And your permissions have to be validated every 90 days. And we have a least privilege principle. How many people think, let me take a survey here. How many people at AWS have global root access to the infrastructure? Anybody? 0. There is not a single soul at AWS who has global root access. So we try to make least privilege one of our tenets. Again, visibility through automation. People make mistakes, machines don't. So let's make the machines watch what's going on in our environment. We know what normal looks like. We should know what abnormal looks like. Talking about shrinking the protection boundaries, I mentioned this earlier, by shrinking the protection from the old school moat around the castle down to the lock on the bedroom door. So you want to get that protection boundary down to the smallest unit possible. And encryption, I cannot emphasize this more. Encryption, encryption, encryption. There is relatively low overhead for encryption, relatively low performance hits. It's free, it's easy, you click the box, you encrypt your stuff. So training, we have some training opportunities for folks. We have security fundamentals on AWS, security operations. It's a 3-day class. I would recommend folks take it. We have a lot of computer-based training as well. So the bottom line, choosing security does not mean giving up on convenience or introducing complexity. Security should be simple, visible. How should you do it? You should define some standards. What do I want to secure? How do I want to secure it? You got to know what you have. You inherit our compliance controls. So when you look at compliance regimes, like I said earlier, are we responsible for the concrete of the data center floor up through the hypervisor? Those are our responsibilities. So we can take those responsibilities and shove those security controls at your auditors and say, we got this. And then you guys, as customers, have from the guest operating system on up. And between the two of us, you have a complete security story. Use the features. I mentioned 3 features here. We have instituted 187 new security enhancements this year alone to our services. So we have them out there, use them. You know, the AWS logo is a bunch of little building blocks, right? And that's on purpose. It's giving you the blocks to build the house or the castle or the city that you want to use. Manage your templates. I mentioned that earlier. Think big. Reduce the role of people. That's simple. Don't give everybody global root access. Nobody needs global root access. Use multi-factor authentication. That's key because passwords are compromised. But if you have a one-time password, it's very difficult to compromise that. And concentrate on what matters. You guys have businesses to run. You know, Jeff mentioned earlier, let us do the undifferentiated heavy lifting. This is what we do. That first one I'm not even going to mention because it's obvious. You know, and we're creating more tools to make it easier for you guys to do security. And we're creating ways to help you build a world-class team. Leveraging your guys and our security expertise, you should be able to have a rock-solid infrastructure, a rock-solid service for your customers. And again, you can move fast and stay safe in this world by leveraging everything that I talked about. But don't take my word for it. This is a survey from Gartner, or a research paper from Gartner. I'll just read this real quick. CIOs and CISOs need to stop obsessing over unsubstantiated cloud security worries. Instead, apply their imagination and energy to developing new approaches to cloud control, allowing them to secure compliantly and reliability leverage the benefits of this new computing model. Cloud is the new normal, and we're here to try to make it as safe for you as possible. So thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed it. And wait, I want to take a picture to prove to my boss that we're actually doing something out here. So everybody say cheese. Beautiful. Thank you much.
Thank you, Bill.